stop me if you've heard this one before, but life is suffering. And you don't get to choose not to suffer. You can choose what you're going to suffer for. Are you going to suffer for improving yourself and actually grow from it, the kind of suffering that actually leads to development? Or are you going to suffer from running away from self-improvement and abandoning people who depend on you? Are you going to suffer for serving others? Or are you going to suffer for running away from that responsibility, that commitment? You're going to suffer either way. You might as well suffer in a way that's going to be productive and is going to contribute to a meaningful life. Because freedom is not the absence of commitments. It isn't to not have them at all. It's the ability to choose what's best for you. And you can't choose what's best for yourself until you know who you are. It's just pressing on that to find out who you are. Because once you know who you are, then you can fulfill your nature. Because most people don't love themselves enough. They don't pursue their own nature. If you loved yourself, you would do what your nature demands. You would fulfill the responsibilities that you establish for yourself. You would be a being that has meaning. It's weak people who run away from those responsibilities. That's why I don't trust weak people. Because weak people have to lie. It's their only means of self-defense. They have to lie because they want to run away from the consequences. They're not strong enough to absorb and fulfill the consequences of their decisions. You're crazy if you go into business with a weak person, if you're friends with a weak person, because it's a betrayal waiting to happen, man. And it's not just like a purely academic question, because if you don't know what your purpose is, then how do you know if you're living properly? And you find this with a lot of people, especially when you talk to older people, of course. And that's, of course, the best place where you can get your life lessons from. The older, the better, because they've existed for the longest on this planet. They have the most successes, they have the most regrets, they have the most failures, they have the most cherished memories. They can tell you a lot as we get closer to death, the things that are important to us. And I'm talking about like things that are important to humanity. We can't look at just one person and say, yeah, but you're 90 years old, but what do you know? You're just one person. What do like all of these 90-year-olds say? Like when people say, when we're young, I don't want to live very long. I don't want to live to be like 100 years old. Man, I wouldn't want to do that. Talk to people in their 90s. Ask them, do you want 10 more years? And almost universally, they're going to say, yes, I would love to have 10 more years. Very few people are going to say, no, I wish I died 30 years ago. That's one thing that old people can tell us, that life is precious, life is valuable, because they have a perspective to look back on it and have those and have regrets, have triumphs, of course. For some reason we focus so much on the regrets, but to have triumphs. And then if we understand that generally speaking, people have certain regrets, the sooner that we can start living to avoid those regrets, the fewer we're going to have later on. But it's almost like we're hell-bent on not finding out what our purpose is, or trying really, really hard to not hear what really old people have to say about life. Like we think somehow like so much has changed because now we have social media or something. It's like, but the world's different. 300,000 years of human history. Do you think that all of a sudden things have changed in the last 20 because we have the ability to message each other directly? There's a human condition. There's a human condition that grapples with the technology. But the human condition is the same as it always has been. It takes more than just 20 years to change 300,000 years of genetic programming. And so finding out what it is to be myself is really important. Finding out what it is to be a human generally is really important, because you can't pursue being a human until you know what it is to be a human. Just like your dog can just exist, of course, but again, if your dog's purpose is to be a guard dog, and then it doesn't guard very well, then your dog is not fulfilling its purpose. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, your dog is unconscious that it's failing to fulfill its obligations. It's failing to fulfill its purpose in life. But as humans, we don't have that luxury or that curse, however you see it. We don't have the ability to just say, I'm not fulfilling we have the ability to ignore the fact that we're not fulfilling our purposes. If you're a dude and you make children, you've now created a purpose for yourself, which is to be a father, it's to be a husband, to be a family person, to be someone who provides. Is it any surprise that the people who run away from those obligations, generally speaking, lead lives of complete chaos and lives of complete regret, self-hatred? You're going to see that almost every other decision of their life circles around the same type of irresponsibility that generates that problem in the first place. Regret, and then carrying a bunch of life decisions to try to cover up all of that. Why? Didn't fulfill the purposes and the responsibilities of self-improvement. Why do we run away from that? Oh, I'm not ready for that responsibility. So you're running away from self-improvement. Because to be a parent, to be a father, is to improve yourself to the point that you actually are someone who's worthy to be admired. You're a person who works hard and provides for others and is selfless, actually knows the meaning of the word love. And yet they'll run away from that. We run away from self-improvement, and in doing so, also run away from service to others. Responsibilities that other people didn't create. We create those responsibilities. So once you do that, what have you done? Well, you've created, now you know what it is to be yourself, to be a parent, to be a spouse, to be an upstanding member of a community, to be something greater than what you originally are only by yourself. And yet we run away from that. And then, surprise, surprise, most people live lives of absolute quiet desperation. They hate their lives. They make all these decisions around it that reflect that. Why? Duh. It's not a complicated formula. We run away from self-improvement. We try really hard not to be better. We try really hard to just coast. And then that should tell us something, that a meaningful life that is worth living, and not by my estimation, but by the people who make these decisions. You can talk to them. We know what the literature says. We know what the research says. We know what the interviews say. It all centers around that a life in which a person coasts is not a meaningful life for them. It's to fulfill the responsibilities that you create, that you choose for. Because, stop me if you've heard this one before, but life is suffering, and you don't get to choose not to suffer. You can choose what you're going to suffer for. Are you going to suffer for improving yourself and actually grow from it, the kind of suffering that actually leads to development? Or are you going to suffer from running away from self-improvement and abandoning people who depend on you? Are you going to suffer for serving others? Or are you going to suffer for running away from that responsibility, that commitment? You're going to suffer either way. You might as well suffer in a way that's going to be productive and is going to contribute to a meaningful life. Because freedom is not the absence of commitments. It isn't to not have them at all. It's the ability to choose what's best for you. And you can't choose what's best for yourself until you know who you are, to know what you are. If a dog is sitting in a kitchen next to the burglar, he can't know that if he understands that his role in life, the thing that's best for him, the commitment he has is to protect this house, well, then he can chase away the bad guy. But if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, then you don't know what to do. That's one of the reasons that entertainment is so nefarious. It's so nefarious. I don't know if any of you have ever done this, where you played a video game or something, and you're just going to play for a little bit, just to get your day started, and then you sit down. It's like 6 hours later, 5 hours later, 8 hours later, 10 hours later. You're like, whoa, where the hell did Sunday go? There's actually, I can't remember what it's called. There's actually a name for it. If any of you guys get this, where you get like a certain sadness or melancholy on a Sunday, like a weird feeling on Sunday. Sunday just feels different for some reason, and largely that's what it is, because Sunday is that day where people rest and don't do much. And then there's that sense of crap, I could have done something else. And then there's this impending idea that, oh, tomorrow I go back to work and life restarts. And it comes entirely from that sense of, I didn't do anything today. I didn't fulfill my purpose today. And so that's why I give such a hard time. It's not a hard time, I hope you understand, but it's just pressing on that to find out who you are. Because once you know who you are, then you can fulfill your nature. Because most people don't love themselves enough. They don't pursue their own nature. If you loved yourself, you would do what your nature demands. You would fulfill the responsibilities that you establish for yourself. You would be a being that has meaning. And you would wear yourself out doing it. Like a dancer. If you understand that if you're a dancer, that Dancing is not something that you do, it's something that you are. You wear yourself out doing it. You don't just sit there and go, oh, I'm too tired to do it. You have to do it. If you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a mechanic, and whatever it is that you're doing is something that's inside of you, you wear yourself out doing it. And when you're not doing it, you're learning about it, you're studying it. And yet so few of us study what it is to be a human being, or to study who I am, or what I am. And we just kind of go through life and hit and miss once in a while. It's like I fulfill this responsibility without even realizing why. But if you know what you are, you can focus your life on that. Focus it like a laser beam. And everything that you do in your life is geared towards fulfilling what you are, maximizing who you are and what you are. That's another thing that you can talk to. So many old people have those regrets as they get closer to death, that they didn't live their lives doing the things that mattered. How can you know what matters if you don't know who you are? How can you know how you fit into the world around you if you don't know who you are? The first academy in the Western world was started by a philosopher named Plato. And he had this sign above the door which said, know yourself, to know yourself. Because that should be the focus of all education, to know yourself. Why study chemistry? To understand the chemical world around us? True, fine, but it's to know who you are and how you fit into that chemical world. Why study philosophy? To know your ideas, what makes you you. Why study psychology, mathematics, history, anything? It's to know who you are and how you fit into this world around you. Every day when you guys come in here, by the way, you walk past that sign that says know yourself. And yet, I bet as I say this, no one's actually listening, but if I say this, that many of you will come through this room hundreds of times this year and never even notice it. If you don't notice that sign, how can you notice anything about yourself? If you don't notice the world around us. And yet that's where so much of our focus is, not inside. And so, to choose yourself, to choose what's best for you, which is to know who you are, and then to know what's best for you. And what's best for you is not oftentimes what we think is best. Getting away with a lie is not what's best for us a lot of times. Getting away with stuff is not what's best for us. What's best for us most of the time is fulfilling responsibilities. You lie, shouldn't have done it. You get caught, what do? You fess up to the responsibility. You face the responsibility. It's weak people who run away from those responsibilities. That's why I don't trust weak people. Because weak people have to lie. It's their only means of self-defense. They have to lie because they want to run away from the consequences. They're not strong enough to absorb and fulfill the consequences of their decisions. You're crazy if you go into business with a weak person, if you're friends with a weak person, because it's just it's a betrayal waiting to happen, man. And you can't control what other people do, but at the very least, don't be that person yourself, whoever yourself is. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Tuesday.